Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Karen Bronson. I'm Director of Professional Learning for SAANYS, and it is really a pleasure to see you here today. We are going to wait a couple of minutes to continue to admit people, but we will start to get started. We've had close to 300 registrations for this workshop today, which kind of confirms what we already know, which is attendance. Student attendance is really a very challenging, complex, multifaceted, I'm just going to keep coming up with adjectives, so somebody stop me, problem that is certainly not one that we can look at and say, there we go, this is going to fix it. We all know that. So what we can do is explore different approaches, think through different strategies. And I think this is a wonderful format for us to do that. So as we continue to admit people, I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to experience today. And once again, I want to thank you for being here. It really is a pleasure to be here again today with our good friend, Ken Spiro. Ken is someone who has led SchoolSims for a long time and who for over 30 years has been using computer-based simulations to allow professionals in different fields to safely learn from decision-making and from mistakes around some of the most challenging problems of practice. And I think certainly student absenteeism falls squarely into that category. So for the past 6 years, Ken has been focused on the challenge of the silent crisis of leadership in K-12. So think about the past 6 years, and I think once again, that silent crisis is definitely one we can identify with, and sometimes it's not so silent, especially when we hear footsteps kind of pounding their way out of our school districts to do different things. So we are in a challenging time, and anything we can do at SAANYS to support you and your professional learning and welcome guests like Ken and SchoolSims to help us navigate some of the challenging problems that you deal with is always a very good thing. So we're very excited about learning about a simulation around student absenteeism today. Couple of things. First of all, we are recording this session, just so you know that. At the conclusion of the session, or after the session, Christine Foglia will send you two things in an email. One of them will be a link to the recording, which will also be posted on our website. And Christine will also send you a feedback report that Ken will provide us with, which is a great way to step back and reflect on each segment of the simulation today and what some different approaches were, what the comments were up in the chat. It will kind of help you have a place to reflect on what you have just experienced over the hour or so. And on that note, I just want to remind you that really what we're doing today is a sample of a simulation. Because if this was really being done in your school or district on a superintendent's conference day, at a school retreat, at a faculty or staff meeting, more time would be spent on each simulation than what we will experience today. But we'll definitely have enough time to go pretty deeply into some directions that school leaders may take and consider some of those directions. But keep in mind, today is a sample of a full-scale simulation. I will just say that I would really recommend that you take a look at the menu of simulations that SchoolSims offers for both teacher professional learning and school leader professional learning. All of their topics, I think, are right on target with the kinds of things that educators want and need today. So without any further ado, we're going to get started right now, and I want to turn it over to Ken Spiro. Ken, welcome.
Thank you very much, Karen. I appreciate that. And it's wonderful to be here and working with you all. As Karen mentioned, I've been doing simulation. If I ask you a quick question and you can respond in chat, fill in the blank. Blank is the best teacher. How would you fill that in? Right, experience. Thank you. That's pretty much, if you ask 100 people, you'll get various versions of their life or experience. Everybody will say that, and yet when it comes to learning new skills or changing behaviors, what we tend to do is instruct. We tend to teach. And the thing about the distinction between how we learn from instruction versus how we learn from experience is that when it comes to instruction, we learn from the right way to do it. We learn the information we need to know, but when it comes to experience, we actually learn from making mistakes. And as you all know, I don't have to tell you, right? The School of Hard Knocks is really rather painful. And we use simulation as a vehicle by which we can provide safe experience. It's an opportunity to make decisions in challenging topics, such as dealing with the multifaceted aspects of absenteeism and many others, but in a context in which you can make decisions and, well, maybe it doesn't go well, but it's okay because you can reflect on why. And not necessarily that you're going to get it right the next time, because in education, as you know, there's not a lot of getting it right. There's a lot of doing as well as you can, but somebody's probably not going to like what you do. And as Karen mentioned, it's not so quiet. They do share their opinions, and we have to take that into account. So here's an opportunity to practice. And we know from other avenues that when it comes to needing experience in a scalable way, we use simulation, right? You wouldn't put a pilot in a plane without hours of simulation. You wouldn't put a doctor or a nurse into a patient suite without hours of simulation, certainly not in the military. So why don't we require this of our teachers and administrators in schools? It's not like the stakes are any less hot or any less critical. And the fact of the matter is that it's something that is very important, right? Because we're dealing with the future of our kids, with the health, the mental health and future of our kids. And so being able to have this safe kind of practice is really important. And that's what simulations are really all about. I don't want to spend too much time in the upfront because I really want to dive into the sim. And I really want to, just be clear that we're talking about absenteeism. I don't have answers. I'm not here to tell you anything. You are the experts in this in your school, in each of your individual schools, or in your buildings, or in the parts of the buildings in which you work. And it's that expertise that we want to bring out. Simulation is a wonderful tool for having experience, but it's also a wonderful tool for having a shared experience. These challenges that we tend to simulate are contextual by nature, which means that there's no right answer, because in each context, it might play out differently. And it plays out differently even in the same context, but over different times, or with different people, sometimes even with the same people, because people are not predictable in terms of how they're going to respond. So the best thing that we can do is be thoughtful. But how do we be as thoughtful as we can be, not only with how we do things, but how somebody else does things, because that insight can be invaluable, as well as the opportunity to realize that you're not alone, that you have a peer, a colleague who had a different way of thinking about it. Pick up the phone and call them if you're struggling with a particular problem. So a lot of our session today will be an opportunity to talk and to share with each other perspectives and get into some dialogue. So I would encourage all of you, if you don't all know each other, please introduce yourselves in chat and have the opportunity to speak with, to share with me questions that you have, comments that you want to raise, and obviously discussions amongst yourselves. And we'll have an opportunity to do that in the simulation as well, because the opportunity to learn from each other is critical, because this is a shared problem. It is a problem that manifests, actually, to just ironically just wanted to cover the issue of pedagogy. And we talk about pedagogy around instruction for the most part. But the fact of the matter is as defined here by our friends at Wikipedia, that teaching is the theory and practice, right? It's both. And this is the practice part. We're not going to spend as much time in theory, but we are going to focus on the practice and the opportunity to focus on how it's influenced by social, political, and psychological development of learners, because that's about our ability to interact socially and to feel that we're part of a group, that we are in a shared problem, so that we don't feel isolated. But when we talk about this idea of absenteeism, right, it's a national problem. It is not a New York problem. It is a national problem, and it's gotten worse. It was a problem before COVID, and after COVID, it has gotten significantly worse. And again, you'll get these slides so you can see the references and look up the data for yourselves if you haven't seen it. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, which is why there were so many registrants for this webinar, because I'm guessing this is something that is being experienced pretty broadly. And obviously it is, again, multifaceted, because you have the issue of having students that are absent, and then when you get them back, that creates a whole nother set of concerns, right? In terms of how you navigate mixed classrooms that have students that have been there versus students that are just coming back from being absent for a while, and how to navigate those differences in addition to learning differences that teachers have to deal with all the time. And obviously, again, that multifaceted aspect, again, just seeing all the different kinds of impacts that absenteeism has. And again, not telling you anything that you haven't lived, but just looking at this from the perspective of how this is manifesting again across the country. And this was an interesting study that just looked at the peer effects. So that when you're, not only is it a problem relative to the students that are absent, but what is the impact of the absenteeism on the other students that are currently in class relative to them becoming absent? And again, just some interesting stuff, and again, give you the opportunity to go look at it more deeply as you see fit, and as you work on this in your buildings, but the opportunity to engage from that perspective. Any thoughts, questions before we go on? And by the way, I would encourage, even with the number of people that we have here, please, if you have something to say, please unmute yourself. Obviously, you can do it in chat. You can raise your hand, or you can just unmute yourself and speak. I don't mind being interrupted, and certainly when there are opportunities. Okay, we unmuted, but is there somebody who's wanted to speak, or was that just noise? Okay.
The flip side is, please do stay muted when you're not speaking. Thank you.
But do feel free to chime in, because again, this is about you and the challenges that you're having. And if you're having a challenge, chances are so are your peers. And to have this opportunity to discuss it and share it is what this is really all about. So without further ado, we're going to engage in a simulation that we call Planning for Student Achievement. And okay, so with us, for our purposes, simulation can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. For us, it's obviously going to be online, which you're going to see. It's a choose your own adventure type exercise where we're going to make decisions. So we'll exercise judgment. We'll experience the consequences, because once we make a decision, we're going to follow that path and live that life in a school, in again, some of those multifaceted components. In one aspect of dealing with absenteeism. And then ultimately there's feedback, there's that opportunity for reflection, because experience is the best teacher, but really only when there's the opportunity to reflect. So having that opportunity is very important. And again, we'll send that feedback report at the end, because we're going to make a number of decisions. But it really all starts with context, right? Because this issue is so contextual, it's important to have this take place in a context. Not your context, but it could be. And we'll have an opportunity to engage with video of people, because, well, they're not my people, but they could be. And so it's an opportunity for you to see yourself in this action. And we're actually going to be making decisions as us, but it will tell you what the role is in a moment. But it's an opportunity for you to see your situation, but through the lens of this context, which again, you can look at maybe what are some of the differences. Why would things be different in your building versus what's happening here? And that's an opportunity for critical thought. Well, what difference does that make? And why should it make a difference? And how is that important? Because situational awareness is also an important component from a decision-making perspective in whatever problem you are navigating. So first, some insight into some of the characters that we'll interact with. So there's Adam, who's the assistant principal in the building. There's the dean of students, Devin. There's a 7th grade teacher, an 8th grade teacher, and this is going to be a team that we're going to be interacting with, our principal. So we're actually not going to be the principal, we're going to be the head of counseling. But you'll see how this manifests. But again, we're making decisions we will be making decisions in this context, and one of the lead teachers in the school. And I believe now this simulation will introduce its.
Welcome to the Planning for Student Achievement simulation, created by SchoolSims together with the University of Indianapolis.
In this simulation, you will assume the role of the counseling chair at a medium-sized middle school. You will seek to understand and implement processes to reduce truancy at your school, and will consider a variety of impacts resulting from absenteeism. This simulation is an excellent resource to encourage discussions and consider trade-offs as you explore the complexities of absenteeism.
About Uptown Middle School. Uptown is a grade 6 to 8 middle school, located on the southeast edge of a neighborhood that is slowly becoming gentrified and attracting new businesses and projects that cater to young professionals and their families. For years, AMS has served diverse working-class residents that took pride in their community values, stability, and cross-cultural connections. As societal change, signified by refurbished houses, microbreweries, and coffee cafes, has slowly but steadily pushed its way into the neighborhood, the traditional community is feeling a loss of community spirit and connection.
Okay, so now we're getting into, again, the background. There's going to be a few screens of background, but really it's to lay out the expanded context of this problem before we actually get into the decision making. So we'll try and get through this pretty quickly.
The changing environment. AMS has witnessed increasing student unrest and external pressure to adopt what is referred to as a modern curriculum. Teachers have noticed cultural divides developing amongst students and have heard talk from new students about the need to consider a more technology-rich curriculum. Although AMS has been rated as a C school on the state performance system, it still prides itself on providing a solid curriculum of reading, writing, and arithmetic. Absenteeism, a growing problem. Over the last 2 years, the administration has been concerned about an increasing absenteeism rate among its more traditional students who still comprise nearly 70% of the student body. Over that period, about 11% of students in the state were chronically absent. AMS is pushing around a 19% rate, which has resulted in more pressure on the school counselor, social worker, and teachers to contact parents. At faculty meetings, teachers are complaining about the need to reteach lessons, students falling behind in both academics and socialization, and keeping track of missing students. Even the school secretary, who monitors the parent line and records absent students, is voicing concern over the additional workload. She said recently to the principal, "When I compare the parent line reported absences to the teacher's list, more and more kids are just not showing up. Parents are not calling. What is going on?"
So hopefully this is reminiscent of some of the issues that you're experiencing, but again, just processing the context in which we're going to be making decisions.
Last-minute change of plans. About 20 minutes before meeting time, you receive a call from the secretary informing you that Principal Roberts has been summoned to a meeting with the superintendent and she has asked that you chair the meeting. Regular attendees include the dean of students, the assistant principal, grade team lead teachers, and you. Your role. You are the head of the counseling department at Uptown Middle School, a team of 3. You've been in this role for the past 2 years, and your 2 often overwhelmed associates have each been here for over 5 years. The principal is trying to determine what to do about and how to combat this rise in absenteeism. She has fired a warning shot that the regularly scheduled first-term review meeting, set for this coming Friday, will focus solely on this topic.
So we are the counseling chair. We don't tell you much more about you because it's us. Each of us individually, we are the decision maker, and we're doing this, we're making decisions as the counseling chair in this school. Okay, so it's just important to remember, but it's us. And so we can bring ourselves to this in terms of how we would process the scenarios that we're about to engage in and make decisions accordingly.
Alarming trend. You welcome everyone and explain that Dr. Roberts is unable to attend, as she has been called to a meeting at district. You explain that you will guide this team through her agenda, which focuses on only one item, absenteeism. You inform them that as attendance data for the last year was reviewed and compared to this point, end of the first quarter, November, of this year, we are seeing an alarming rise in student absences. The rate is currently approaching 19%. This means that, on average, students are absent about 34 days over our 180-day school year. This is equivalent to almost 2 full months of instruction. Obviously, it's time to take stock and turn this ship around. The questions the principal would like us to address are: what is causing students to not attend school? What are our current interventions? What data are we tracking, and who's tracking it? You share your sense of urgency and explain that this team needs to quickly engage with this problem and begin turning this trend around. How will you direct the team at this point? Brainstorm potential immediate solutions. We need to begin turning this around immediately. Consider long-term solutions. Despite the need for quick results, we need a comprehensive solution that is sustainable. Set a deadline for gathering relevant data. We need to drill down into the numbers to discover patterns. Assign responsibility for recommending solutions. Ask an individual or group to take responsibility for identifying next steps. Begin by focusing on the chronically absent. Start with low-hanging fruit and get a quick win. This will buy you time to develop an expanded solution.
Okay, so here we are. We're the chair. We're running this meeting for our, based on the principal not being there and putting us in charge, so to speak. And really the topic here, the only topic we're going to be talking about is absenteeism. So this is the question is, how are we going to direct the team? How are we going to get started in this meeting? And we're going to have to make a decision. And we have 5 options here. So what we're going to do and the way we're going to manage this is we're going to first release a poll in a moment and then have you vote. And really, before we start talking, it's really just to get in your own heads, what do you want to do? And hopefully as many of you as possible will actually weigh in by voting in the poll. And then we can talk a little bit about that, because I'm guessing that there will not be one answer only that people choose to do, and really have an opportunity to get the ideas flowing. Now, one thing that I would like to suggest, there will be hopefully 6 choice options in the poll, at least, that you can choose 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6. And what is 6? A choice that's not there. And that's okay, because if you want to do something that isn't articulated in this choice set, then we want to know what that is. Now, it may be that we can't do it, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth talking about. And so we'll get to that point, but I want to give you a moment to read what's on the screen so that the poll doesn't get in your way. And actually, there's only 5 options. So I would ask that if somebody doesn't see their choice, that you put it in chat what you would do instead. But let's take however long we need here for a moment. You started weighing in. That's great. Go ahead and make a choice. What you would do.
Hey there. Sorry to interrupt. A lot of us I see in the chat, are having a hard time reading the screen from our devices. Could you read them just briefly, real quick to us? Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Yes, or maybe an action can be taken to focus the slides, something that came up earlier too.
Can I actually have it pulled up and I can share my screen?
It miraculously, well, it was clear and now it's not again. So thank you for fixing it. So
I'm going to stop sharing, and one of my colleagues is going to start sharing, and then we will restart. Not restart, we'll pick up from there, and hopefully her screen will be clearer than mine, and I apologize for that. It looks clear on my screen. Not the way of these things, but in the meantime, please do keep voting. Is that clearer?
Much better, thank you.
Much better.
Oh, that's good feedback. Good to know. Note to self. All right. So I definitely have to check that in the future. Do you still want me to read the choices again?
I don't, thank you.
No, but can you resend out the poll? Because I closed it out to try to get the clearer view of the options again.
Okay, well, so we ended the poll. Okay, so it's re-released. So please vote again. So sorry about that. The wonders of Zoom. But hopefully everybody who voted can vote again. And if you change your mind, that's not a bad thing, by the way. But right now there's good diversity. Every choice has been chosen. Let's give it another 15 seconds. So please, or if you need more time, we can certainly give more time. Okay, 5 more. Nope. We're still pouring in. All right, I'll give it 10 more seconds. Okay, so let's share the results. Okay, so we had some nice distribution here in terms of the choice. All the choices were made. There was a larger number of for choice 3 to set a deadline for gathering relevant data. But I'd like to ask anybody who actually was anybody who chose choice 1 want to share? Just unmute and say why you chose choice 1. Anyone?
I chose choice 1 because there's no time to waste getting these kids into school to get them comfortable with being back in school.
That's great. Thank you. And you felt that this one was the best option to get into action faster.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Somebody who chose option 2, want to share real quick?
I chose option 2 so that we can avoid solutionitis in looking at only what's in front of us instead of figuring out a long-term solution.
Well, that sounds like the voice of experience. Have you experienced something like that before?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay, it's great. Thank you. How about number 3?
I chose number 3 because I think it's best that we get everything, we look at the picture clear, and then we start making those immediate decisions and then plan for long-term decisions. But I think you got to look at all of the data or items that you have to draw from to make the best decisions moving forward.
That's great.
I think 3 is important too, because in a time when everyone is kind of stressed and their plates are full, with that type of data, you can figure out those the highest leverage areas and attack those first.
Excellent. Thank you. How about number 4? There aren't as many of you. Any one of you? Okay, how about number 5?
I chose 5.
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I chose 5 because you know who your chronically absent people are, and you got to start with something. So it's almost like you have to do 1 or 5 and 3 at the same time to get moving.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and I was going to just piggyback off of that and say I chose 5 because with morale being low and teachers being burnt out, you know, to get that quick win and feel successful is really important to boost everybody's morale up a little bit at this point. So I chose that to then further go with the longer expanded solution, you know, to see how we can get everybody else on board as well.
That's great. That's, you know, this is a wonderful example of why I love doing this. Because when we write a simulation, right, we don't want to choose any obvious choices, right? You don't want them to be obviously right or obviously wrong, right? Because then it's obvious and there's no critical thinking there. you have each made a case for each one of these options that you would start with. And again, one of the other benefits of a sim is this modality allows us to parse time, right? You may do, as was mentioned, right? You might do 5 and 3, but you have to start with one of them, right? So the goal here is to actually identify, what would you start with, right? What is the tone that you're looking to set? And a lot of this is language, right? You are perceiving the way this is written speaks to you in a way that it reflects your style or reflects what you'd like to have your style be reflected. And so all those things are absolutely 100% valid. And it's important to be able to think those through, but also then as a decision maker, you're thinking both how you would do it and then thinking about how it's going to be received and whether or not and how you're going to manage a change process or how you're going to deal with this gnarly challenge. And you don't want to get into solutionitis. You don't want to get into extending time, but you want to be able to, you actually want to solve the problem, obviously. And the team hopefully wants to do the same, but you also know that they're not all going to agree. So thank you all for sharing. I'm actually curious if, and we can just do this in chat, did anybody change their mind after hearing what anybody said about what you would start with from what you originally put down? And that can be rhetorical, but it is something that we find is an interesting opportunity, right? When you hear from your team, right? If you were running this in your building and you had your team together and you were talking about, and you want to get to alignment, and you hear how maybe from a leadership perspective, what a teacher might say, and you reflect on that, and it might shift how you make decisions. That's a wonderful thing, right? The opportunity to gather additional input into your own decision making can be a wonderful option. But for our purposes here, we're going to go with majority, unless anybody is particularly against that. And we'll go with number 3. Oh, you thought about 3 and 5 and selected 1 because something needs to be done immediately. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And again, it is that you would do 1, 3, and 5, and you may even do them in that order, but it does force you to break those apart, to think about because we can only do one thing at a time, as humans. And so the opportunity to think that way, and thank you for sharing that. So one of the things that is also you will notice about this modality is that there's no back button. So no mulligans. We made the decision, we're going to live with it. And we're going down that path that was reflected by that decision. Whoa, somebody's drawing on the screen. So do you not like this picture of this teacher, or was that just we doodling a little bit on the screen? Okay. Oh. Danielle, did we lose it? Okay, so I think we were muted because I was talking too much. Mr. Taylor responds that your recommendation to gather and disaggregate more data in an attempt to more clearly understand the problem. Mr. Taylor responds. Remember, Mr. Taylor is our 7th grade teacher.
I feel a real sense of urgency, and I fear that we may be engaging in paralysis by analysis. I think we need to analyze less and act more. I recommend that we quickly identify several things we can begin doing immediately to turn this train around.
I agree that we need to move on this quickly, but we need to know where we're going. And taking a limited amount of time to get our bearings will save us time in the long run. I suggest that we begin by asking some of our students for input and suggestions.
Okay.
Tension rises. You feel the tension in the room begin to grow. Collecting data. With your guidance, the team decides to gather more data but also sets an appropriate deadline for data collection and analysis. Tension building. After extended discussion, and with the time allotted for the meeting running out, you conclude the first term review with an agreement to reconvene early next week and launch an initiative addressing this growing truancy problem. That afternoon, you call Principal Roberts with an update, but before you can even begin, she says, "I've just had 3 female students in my office, complaining about the new kids. It seems that a group of new students from the burbs is bullying some of the old guard. Tensions are rising, and the feeling of safety in the school seems to be receding.
So we're seeing that there is, even though obviously we're focusing on the absenteeism, but over the course, as we're navigating a timeline in a building, there's obviously more things going on. We're not able to focus just on this because we have to do the day-to-day issues of schooling. And so obviously there are going to be other issues that are going to be pulling at our attention. Go ahead, Danielle.
Based on information to this point, which areas might you drill down into? In the space below, list data that you might find most helpful in your analysis of absenteeism.
So one of the things that we do in the simulations is also to allow for some qualitative thoughts. So not just to give choices, but to actually think through what are some of the areas you might drill into. So if you could take a moment and just put into chat real quick, we can capture them and put them in, because one of the things we do is capture this in the feedback report with some additional considerations, so that when we send out the feedback report, it'll have some of these items in it. So why don't we just take not too long, but to just reflect on what you might do, and then write it in chat. Thank you, Laura, for population subgroups. Thank you. And if Danielle, if you're able to capture that and put it into the window, that would be great. These are really great ideas. That's a great list. If anybody feels compelled to unmute and express anything in particular that you see is really important to drill into, that'd be great. Let's just let Danielle catch up and make sure we get as many of these in there as possible before moving on. That's great. So Danielle, if you can just scroll the list so people can see them again. That's great. Thank you. And in the interest of time, why don't we go ahead and, oh wait, get those.
It's Tuesday, and the team has reconvened. While some members are reluctant, after some discussion it is agreed that additional data should be collected and analyzed prior to identifying and implementing strategies focused on reducing absenteeism. Which additional data might be most helpful? Select as many as needed. Survey data. Student surveys and/or parent surveys. School achievement data. Grades, awards, PSAT, etc. School culture. Climate survey results, teacher ratings by students, community surveys. Safety data. Discipline, counseling, social worker and community resource utilization data, etc. Absences and truancies. Disaggregated by excused, unexcused, ethnicity, disciplinary, office referrals, etc. ACEs data. Social worker input, trauma-related data, etc. Neighborhood data. Atlas data, household size, income, jobs, free and reduced lunch, etc. Extracurricular data. STEM, clubs, special interests, competitions, etc. District comparative data. Related data from neighboring schools. Social emotional data. Divorces, social worker engagements, social skills training, anger management, etc. Special education data. Percent special education, disaggregated by disability, related services, etc.
Okay, thank you for those who've already started putting in chat. And Danielle, if you can grab those, and we can click on the ones that have already been submitted. Any thoughts in particular? Obviously, this is a list, and there's going to be a bunch of them, and there already have been a bunch. We almost might say, which ones would you not pick? And clearly, this demonstrates part of the problem, right? There is so much data and so many areas to look into, and many of them are very important. And that question that was raised in the how do we approach this, the analysis by the paralysis by analysis, the in terms of what we start with, and then how do you make sure that the data you have is not garbage in, garbage out, that you're looking at the right information that you can actually that would help you with with navigating this challenge, but doesn't become overwhelming. Nicole, you want to say more?
I just think sometimes we are so caught up in data, and really the bottom line is the connection to school sometimes is through the extracurricular piece. Students want to be in school to be connected to activities, clubs, going to sports contests, or really a lot of different things. It could be school dances, whatever. But I do think that that sense of belonging for students and those relationships that connect them to the building can help us also understand that difference that is the secondary problem in this scenario of the old guard versus the new. Because I'm leading to believe that there's a connection there, because the older people that are in this community have some community connection that maybe the newer students that don't. So I'm thinking there's something there that we can kind of pull from.
That's great. Was that manifest in any one of these choices, or is that something that is kind of different than the choices that are an additional one? That's not
No,
there?
one of the choices is extracurricular data, and I really think that will give us some information in addition to the other pieces, the social emotional, the culture, the things that we were always going to look at. I just think in addition to that, the extracurricular piece could assist in giving us a little bit of direction.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that a quick exercise that we have done around this is kind of thinking of the school as going to school as a magnet. So what are the things that attract, and what are the things that repel? And just be thinking, just thinking broadly about what are the things that we need to leverage, obviously, and what are the things that we need to mitigate. But clearly those are some of the types of things that you want to be looking at, because that's motivation, right? Why do people want to, in addition to how they're feeling, but thinking about what do they want to be part of? Because everybody wants to be, in general, right? We think that people want to be part of something. That's great. Anybody else?
I just typed in the chat. This is the other Nicole Martin. Sorry. I typed in the chat. So in the beginning, we said this is a 6th through 8th grade school. And I'm just wondering what the transition plan is from 5th grade to 6th grade. I didn't see anything mentioned about that as an option. And I'm just wondering how they're getting set up to make this transition from 5th to 6th grade with additional things like a different schedule, different timings, block scheduling, lockers, the extracurricular piece that Nicole was just talking about, and all of those extra things that when you move to a true junior high school situation, we have to set them up for success. So I'm just wondering, I didn't see that as an option, but I'd be curious to know about that transition from elementary school to the junior high school situation.
That's a wonderful point. And I can't speak to the simulated environment. It wasn't included, but one of the wonderful aspects of this modality is that it lends itself to filling in, right? It's beneficial from the standpoint of processing what's there, but also processing what's not there, what's missing. What assumptions are we making as we progress through this kind of scenario? And that's something that was in the mind of the person and the collaborators that we worked with to lend the authenticity that either might have been assumed or wasn't even thought of. And so that's a great point. Thank you. Joshua, you raising your hand?
Yeah, so I just two things I put in the chat, or one thing and then one additional thing is looking at the siblings, what the siblings, if there are siblings and what, or other family members, because these things are often part of family systems and around what's possible. And, you might have the parents who are, working nights, they're not available in the morning to help get the kids to school. So that's one thing about the siblings. The other thing is about, students who might be in homeless situations or underhoused or moving around a lot. Just looking at the other, I mean, that would sort of go into ACEs, I suppose, but that in particular seems to have a large impact. And also not just looking at absences, but looking at not late, and also in terms of discipline referrals being out of class, because there are a lot of kids who show up, but they're totally not engaged in the school environment, and that goes back to that sense of belonging. So I think it's not just kids who don't show up, it's also kids who are there but aren't engaged in a variety of ways, or coming late every day, and what's happening with that, because missed learning opportunities are missed learning opportunities.
Great, thank you. And Molly, you'll be the last one, and then we'll move on. But thank you for that, Joshua. It's great.
So I just have a question, and I was just looking to see if anybody has any suggestions as well. This is bouncing off of what Kristen said. As far as transition, I work at the high school level. So when we've been looking at attendance, that's actually our one area is the 9th grade students that we see attendance being a big problem with. And we do lots of things in regard to transition, but I didn't know if there are any additional suggestions that anyone has out there or proven strategies that have been effective in helping those students when they're moving, either whether it's from 5th to 6th or from 8th to 9th. We do a transition night. We do orientation before school starts. So we do have things planned to help get kids ready and do visits here at the high school, but just curious if anybody has any other additional ideas.
Do you do an advisory program for your 9th graders?
Yes, we do. We actually started a class for our freshmen called Freshman Seminar to help them get acclimated to the high school. So they have that, all freshmen take that all year long.
Is that led by teachers or by students?
It's led by teachers.
So one of at the former school that I worked at that was really helpful was we ran a special advisory program every other Wednesday. For that was for the freshmen, but the seniors in the school, senior leaders would be identified, and it really grew as far as the students wanting to kind of earn the right to be identified as a senior leader, and then they would connect with their small groups of freshmen. So that offered another level of connection for the freshmen coming in, and it also gave them kind of somebody that they could lean on, and they formed kind of their little circles in that program. So that was like one of the more effective ways that I've seen an advisory program run, as opposed to kind of some other methods and procedures that we've used. So I don't know if that's something that you could look at doing to help support the 9th graders in your school.
Thank you, Brad, for sharing that. That's actually really helpful. So thank you.
And please maintain, connections with each other. Obviously, you can put some more in chat. But this opportunity, obviously, you're part of this association, and the opportunity to engage in this way is part of the, as I'm sure Karen would note, is the goal, right? In terms of bringing you all together in this context for this opportunity to share. But for our purposes here, if it's okay, we can submit and continue so we can get a little bit further. I do want to respect everybody's time. So just to let you know, we will kind of pause at the top of the hour. I know many of you probably need to go. If anybody wants to stay, I'm happy to continue a little bit further. And again, there will be an opportunity if you're interested in accessing the sim to engage and actually be able to bring the sim into your buildings or into your districts, depending on how that would be viewed. So this is something that you could actually run with your teams. And having this discussion, and to Molly's question, right? If you were doing this with your team, right, and engaging, however you want to define the team in terms of who you bring together, to actually have this discussion to see if we can be aligned in the building and how, not necessarily that we make all the same decisions, because that's not really realistic, but that we approach decisions in the same way. So we may end up with a different way of articulating, but that the thinking is aligned as it ought to be, right? As part of our climate, as part of the our operations in the building, that's something that you can opt to do and have access to if that's something you'd be interested in. Daniel, why don't you go ahead and submit?
Too much data. Your decision to gather school culture and safety information provides insights into the changing perceptions of your school's climate. As you analyze safety-related data, you recognize a marked increase in disciplinary actions and discover that a growing percentage of the students no longer feel AMS is a safe place. Bullying plays a larger than expected role in absences. Your review of the school climate survey indicated a large decline in sense of community, and teacher ratings dropped by almost 10% over last year. Parental surveys suggest that satisfaction and involvement have declined significantly over the past 2 years. You're pleased that the team agreed to start small. This will allow further rounds of data collection and analysis if necessary, but gets the ball rolling and launches the initiative within your area of control.
It seems we may have opened Pandora's box and probably prematurely involved community resources in any potential initiatives that may come from this initial research. We're going to have to be extremely careful of the way we now approach certain aspects of absenteeism, as parents and community resources are going to weigh in. At this stage, we've probably introduced confusion, frustration, and difficulty in maintaining control into the equation.
Well, I, for one, welcome their involvement and perspectives. Yes, there will probably be moments of tension and disagreements, but aren't those positive elements of any creative process?
Drill down discovery. Your choice to collect and analyze safety data, including disciplinary, counseling, and social workers data, and/or truancy data, disaggregated by ethnicity, gender, grade, and special services, enables the team to discover that a large recent spike in truancy is occurring among ELL students. The team is excited to discover this and thanks you for your guidance in data collection and analysis. Okay, the team has reconvened to review and analyze the data collected and to identify strategies to reduce and ultimately prevent absenteeism. Which of the following processes will you use? Identify root causes. Have the team drill down and disaggregate the data. Allow discussion of the data. Encourage the team to discuss the data and possible solutions. Encourage a quick review and summarize conclusions. You feel a sense of urgency and want the team to move forward quickly to identify solutions. Send the team to get more data. The data collected leaves questions and you feel you need to drill deeper.
Okay, take a moment. 1, 2, 3, and now we can do number 5, which would be something else that's not there. Okay, let's take 10 more seconds. Okay, So why don't we end the poll? And I don't know what your first name is, or Rivers. Would you like to share why and what what do you find compelling about the three? And again, thinking about what if you had to start with one, which would you do?
Well, number 3, you can easily pull off some quick data to summarize. To get down to the root causes, it's going to take time. And since time is of the essence, we need to get moving. So I would probably do a quick review and summarize, and then really dig deeper and discuss it afterward. But we got to do something.
That's great. And real quickly, does anybody who chose one, why you chose one? Why you wanted to go with the root causes? And if what was just said would make you change?
I would probably still stick with choice 1, but it was an interesting idea. And I think I would because if I can identify that the cause is something I can do something about, I'll know whether it's worth further exploration. And if it's outside the school's locus of control, then we can move on to another possible solution.
Yep, that's great. And again, being able to think about, because it's not necessarily wrong answers here, but it's what you want to do. And one of the things that we've played with is the idea of putting time, information about how much time each one of these things take, right? Because you can look at these things and say, oh yeah, I want to do that. I want one of those and one of those and one of those. And you realize that, real quickly, you've just taken a month's worth of time, which you don't have to do these things. And being sensitized to that you have to manage the trade-offs, right? The trade-off is, this is a great idea, but it's going to take a ton of time or a ton of resources. And you have to figure out then, well, how do we glean as much as we can from the idea and then be able to execute, to make a decision. So why don't we real quickly choose one, since that was the majority, and just to see what happens. And then I want to take a quick break, jump back to the slides before people have to jump. And then we can, for those of you who can stay, we can continue a little bit further. But then again, in terms of being able to get access to the full sim, we'll send out the full feedback report. We'll play the sim through so you can see what that reflection opportunity would be. But let's just see real quickly what happens if we choose one.
Finding root causes. You encourage the team to drill down, disaggregate the data by ethnicity, gender, grade, and a variety of other aspects, and then share perspectives and discuss patterns. As they do so, they discover that absenteeism increases by grade level, as do the number of disciplinary actions. They also discover that students don't feel safe at AMS and that discipline cases are highest among ELL students. As they continue to dig, they find that parents are not responding to school inquiries or notifications and that chronic absenteeism has increased by more than 35% in the last 12 months. It seems you may have uncovered several root potential causes. The AP says, we've begun to unearth some relevant patterns here. I think we need to dig a bit deeper, especially among our 8th grade students, to see if we can uncover some potential solutions. What do you think, Ms. Lee? Ms. Lee, the lead 8th grade teacher, hesitates for a long moment, then cautiously responds, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with the focus shifting primarily to our 8th grade students. They may be where absenteeism most prominently manifests, but is it possible that this problem has roots much earlier in our response or lack thereof to a loss of community and a significant decline in an overall sense of safety here at AMS?
Honestly, that goes back to that whole, how do we transition? Because it probably starts in 6th grade. Danielle, can we switch over to the slides? Do you have the slides up? Thank you. So real quickly, again, I want to take a step away for a moment and thank you so much for your participation. And again, we encourage anybody who's interested in learning more to be able to reach out, because can give you access to for the rest of the year to the library. Some leadership sims, some teacher sims. Actually, if you can just go up to the real quickly so they can see the topics that we cover. This is something that is an opportunity. Each of these bullets is a sim like we've just gone through that can be run as part of your PD or professional learning, or as part of PLCs, or however you want to run them, synchronously or asynchronously, within your buildings or within your districts. So please, you can go back down to if anybody's interested in the QR code. Please feel free to reach out to us or through SAANYS in terms of being able to access more. And obviously our contact information. So if you are interested in our additional resources at our website at SchoolSims.com, so please feel free to do so. So for those of you who do have to go, thank you very much for participating. If you have questions, real quickly, we can answer a few questions and then we can go back to the simulation for those of you who are interested and have a little bit more time. And then again, those of you who received the recording can always go back and see if we played it further, or again, have access to it upon request. But it was a pleasure working with you and loved the ideas that you came up with in terms of addressing this challenge that is experienced throughout the country and actually probably throughout the world. And I look forward to being in touch with you in the future. So any questions before we transition the hour?
I just want to say thank you, Ken, and thank you, team. I think for sure the biggest benefit is in the conversations that these simulations evoke. And I think you can all kind of sense how valuable those conversations would be back home in your schools and districts with your own teams. That said, I just want to be very clear. Here are the things you will receive in an email from Christine Foglia. And just, Ken, make sure I'm saying everything I need to be saying here. People who registered will receive the PowerPoint slides, the feedback report, and a link to the recording. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I mean, obviously the slides will be in the recording, but yes.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone. And you're welcome to stay, and we'll keep going for a few minutes at least. Thank you.
Is that something that would come from us, Karen, on that, the question about the certificate of participation? I mean, we can do one.
That would come from us. And I would say that please be sure you contact Christine Foglia, the person that sent you the link, and tell her right away that you would like a certificate of attendance, because sometimes these take a long time to get where they're going. So, you know, to come out to everyone. So if you really would like one right away, contact Christine. Thanks.
Okay. So then if you want to put the sim back up, then for those people are going to stay.
Findings. So, as data analysis wraps up, you ask the group to list significant findings and summarize them. They come up with the following. Findings. Absenteeism is rising rapidly, a 35% increase over last year. The largest increase is in grade 8. Follow-up is spotty at best. Follow-up gets rigorous only after 10 days. Inconsistent follow-up protocol. Parents are not responding and taking responsibilities seriously. Increasing use of community mental health services. Students find school decreasingly safe, bullying on the rise. Disciplinary actions per capita, are on the rise. Overall, we're soft on truancy. Students are feeling disenfranchised. School culture, sense of community, is deteriorating.
For those of you who are still here, and again, thank you. Do any of you have questions that you wanted answered before we, obviously we can proceed in the sim, but I wanted to make sure if anybody had questions that you'd like to ask, happy to respond. Okay.
Data analysis summary. After listing and summarizing their findings, the team agrees that the first initiative they want to undertake is to revise their existing attendance protocol. AP Peterson says, "We've identified disenfranchisement of our students as one root cause for our growing absenteeism. Somehow we need to re-establish a sense of community that seems to be fragmenting as the gentrification of our community accelerates. However, before we address the elephant in the room, I believe we need to first review and revise our current attendance protocol. I'll email you a copy of the current protocol. But, before even that, I suggest we need to identify a leader for this initiative. Everyone seems to agree, so.
So this is just the attendance protocol that you'd be able to review in more depth if we had more time. But there is a protocol that can be printed out, handed out, reviewed, etc. In terms of what is.
You need to have someone lead or guide this initiative. Who should lead this initiative? Assistant principal. He has influence and many community connections. Ask for volunteers. Get those with the most desire to lead this initiative. Ask the principal to lead this one. Her span of control and authority make her the best candidate. The counseling chair. You have access to a great deal of data. But you must be cautious that admin and punitive tasks are not allowed to fall to your team by default. The social workers. They work most closely with chronically absent students.
And one of the things, obviously, and thanks for sharing that this is something you're working on. It's always wonderful to get that validation. You know, when we identify when somebody raises a problem of practice that they think needs to be simulated, which is how many of our simulations get developed, we often have experienced that if it's a problem for one person or one school or one district, it's a problem for many. And so it's great that it aligns with challenges that are being experienced currently. And one of the things you get to in this scenario is that as you've begun to see some of the characters, so as you're thinking about who ought to lead this, right, is both which role makes the most sense, which personality makes the most sense. And obviously, you don't know these people so well. We've gotten some sense from a couple of them, but it's interesting, that challenge, right, in terms of where you want to put that responsibility, because it's not just where it should be, but who's actually going to get it done. Anyway, but if you want to, we'll quickly put the poll up and see if you want to take a vote on who ought to lead this initiative. Danielle there it is. Five more seconds. Okay, let's show. Danielle, can you end the poll? Okay, anybody want to share real quick why the AP?
I actually am an assistant principal, and this sounds like a task that I would be assigned to do. One thing I like about being an assistant principal, unlike the principal with all the have-tos that they have to do, special projects like this can fall to the assistant principal. So that's why I voted for that.
Well, is that a should it fall to should it fall to you, or just does it?
Probably a little of both.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Or principal. Okay, there you go. I guess it depends on the nature of your school, right? Okay. Again, in the interest of time, and I appreciate you all staying a little bit further, why don't we go ahead with one?
Assistant principal as team lead. As soon as you propose having the AP lead this initiative, pushback is quick and strong. Mr. Peterson, the AP, says, "My position may lend significance to the initiative, but my other functions may not facilitate rapid decision-making. Further, I don't necessarily have relationships with those community resources I'd need to coordinate with, so that may slow things a bit." Then, leading this initiative. The meeting gets very quiet and finally, Dean of Students Smith says, "Why don't you lead this initiative? You know, the American School Counseling Association's national model recommends that school counselors, among other tasks, develop programs that result in improved student achievement and discipline." You respond by suggesting there is some question regarding exactly what that means. You agree that perhaps your department is best suited to lead this initiative, but reiterate that there has always been strong pushback against counselors becoming truant officers and imposing discipline or restriction of educational options as a result of poor attendance. You suggest that those kinds of tasks might most effectively be managed by the AP. So with that stipulation, you agree to lead the initiative. You feel the tension in the room increase, and sense the workload shifting in your direction. Revised Attendance Protocol. After reviewing the existing attendance protocol, the team meets again and writes a proposal for several modifications. They reduce several of the thresholds and tighten up roles and responsibilities. You're pleased with the cooperation you see and the energy maintained throughout the process. You hope this is a foreshadowing of things to come. Addressing absenteeism. Following their updates to the attendance protocol, the team begins to discuss a variety of approaches that may be taken to address the more subtle absenteeism issues. Mr. Taylor speaks up.
I think we need to apply a stick approach to absenteeism. As I mentioned earlier, students need to be held responsible for their choices. Ignoring the rules will not bode well for them in the real world, and we need to establish the expectation that the rules are to be followed now.
Don't you think that a carrot approach is much more likely to succeed? Our students seem to respond well to incentives, and we should be considering ways to draw them in that don't rely on punitive outcomes. We should work more closely with parents to rebuild our sense of school community.
Kim, I like that. We should also consider aligning community resources to assist. I think that that would be more effective than our usual stick of the past.
You recognize the need to get consensus and focus their efforts. Which primary focus will you encourage? Pursue punitive approaches. This will most quickly capture student attention. Encourage a student-centered empowering approach. This will engage them, but may not produce immediate results. Focus the team on a research-based strategy. Leverage recent research to guide their response. Work closely with parents. The team needs to focus on ways to enhance parental relationships. Work more closely with community resources. This is a school community issue, so involve the community.
Anybody want to real quickly suggest something? Because I realize we're probably taking advantage, we're going beyond time. But if those of you, if you're interested in seeing the end, we can real quickly make a choice. Anybody want to chime in real quick?
I like the idea of working with community resources. A lot of times I find that parents are already doing the best they can. And we have community resources that we tap into a lot of things to support the parents and the students.
Excellent. Thank you. Go with that.
Involving community resources. Your choice to gather community-related data at this early juncture results in involving community resources, perspectives, and opinions in the problem resolution process. Community engagement. Community resources respond positively to your decision to work more closely with them. You find them eager to engage to help find workable solutions to your truancy issue. However, as you engage with them, it becomes clear that their vision doesn't closely align with yours. Representatives from the local substance abuse and suicide prevention organizations strongly advocate that a successful approach needs to be family-centered. You find it easy to get sidetracked and start down some rabbit holes, but extra effort to remain focused and align visions ends up with the development of some excellent support systems that promise to provide long-term solutions and promote continuous improvement. Together with your initiative team, you craft a school community program for effectively dealing with and preventing absenteeism. You're frustrated that you have a very clear picture of what needs to be done now, but necessary resources just aren't available. Not the first time you've been here. Which of the following might you recommend to Principal Roberts? Ask for volunteers from your faculty and staff. You know this will be added workload. Recommend hiring a school community advocate. In addition to aligning resources, a person in this position could also build some social capital. Hire more social workers. You need additional resources to work with the community. Add another counselor. You know that many of the admin tasks associated with your plan will end up in your office anyway.
Anybody want to take a quick stab at this one?
While I love the idea of hiring more people, that's not possible with budgets. And volunteers is going to be really tough because teachers are already stretched out rather.
Once again, those trade-offs, they're so gnarly. Which one would you want to see though? So given that we can make a choice here, it may not be something that realistically can be done in your building, but would you be curious about what happens if you choose it?
Probably number 2.
Okay, let's go with that.
Hiring a school community advocate. Your team seems excited at the idea of a school community advocate but voices their frustration that yet again, the school is wrestling with a growing number of problems and a shrinking budget. Sensing the mood in the room, Ms. Smith optimistically says, "We've taken time to work through the complex issues associated with absenteeism and come up with a number of very good ideas and workable solutions. I think that the role of a school community advocate is an excellent idea. Someone who can act as a liaison between school and community to help implement solutions and at the same time build social capital." Mr. Taylor then exclaims, "And here we are, at a familiar junction, additional functions and associated tasks that will likely not be funded. So which of us is going to take on all this added workload? I'm running out of time to teach."
Kind of what was said.
In working to prevent absenteeism, several excellent approaches are presented by members of the team. 2 of them seem equally viable but are philosophically opposed. This causes your team to begin to take sides, entrench and defend positions. Which of the following will you do to overcome this potential impasse? Let the 2 of them talk it out. They need to understand one another's perspective before deciding. Have the team vote. Leverage their perspectives to select the best option. Request input from the principal. Leverage an outsider's perspective to assist in making the decision. Have the entire team suggest alternatives. Brainstorm additional options. Do more research. Consider the pros and cons of each perspective.
Anybody want to quickly chime in? We're almost at the end.
I love a good pro-con list.
Which one was that? Is that which one was that? Would that be? Oh,
The last one, doing more research.
Okay, yep, let's do that.
Your initiative results in high levels of commitment to the program devised by the team to reduce absenteeism. Change is slow to occur, but the process you used results in root cause identification and a response protocol that sees early signs of declining truancy. You also build significant social capital and find parents increasingly willing to engage with the school, their students, and the community.
So that is
your
the
results. Following is a report that provides an overview.
Yeah, let's go to the next screen. So again, so now we've gotten to the end, and this is what we're going to send you. So this highlights the path that was taken through the sim, and then here is a if you keep going down, remind you each scene that where the decision was made, what was the learning objective in that scene, reminds you of what your choice was, what our choice was, what the other choices were, and feedback on that choice. And in the second one, you see where they had the open-ended, the qualitative response. So here, remind you what the prompt was and some considerations that maybe you ought to have been thinking about, which were manifest in your response, but the responses are captured there. And then you go on and you can page down throughout to see for each decision that we made during the course of the sim. So this is the way the sims work. This is the opportunity to reflect as a group. We hold off on providing the summative feedback until the end because we want you to live the life. It's not about one and done, right? Because there's no such thing, as you all know, as a one and done in a school, right? There's always blowback. So you have to not only make the best decision you can, but then you also have to navigate the blowback that is sure to follow. And so that's why we want you to live the life, because sometimes there will be downstream things that you'll need to think about now and then navigate later on, or either the benefits, the consequences, etc. But then to get that summative feedback at the end where you can kind of put it all together and have that opportunity for reflection individually or as a team. That's the overall objective with this modality, and that it can be blended with other things, right? This can be part of a team meeting. It can be part of PD linked with content. It can be something that's an assignment that you then assign to teachers to play and then come into the PLC to discuss it. However you'd want. The nature of the how you use the sim is totally up to you in your buildings, and that's kind of what the opportunity might be if that's something you wanted to pursue. Either way, we will send out, as Karen mentioned, the slides, the recording, the feedback report, so you can review it in more depth. And obviously you can be in touch if you'd like to see more or be able to have an opportunity to run it in your buildings. Any thoughts, questions for those of you who are still here? And thank you for sticking with it. Well, we thank you all. It was a pleasure to engage with you. And if you have any questions, I will put my email in chat. I am, send it to, where's everyone? Why can't I do everyone? It's kspero@schoolsims.com, KSPERO@schoolsims.com. And we'll look forward to hearing from you. Wish you all well and good luck with the latter half of school and happy closings, etc. Closing of the year, not buildings. And wishing you well.